All right. Yeah. We're back. Episode 4 of the Dynamic Tora Podcast. I hear you have a lot of interesting insights on this for this week's episode. That's what I heard.
Well, we're going to discuss some events that happened in the Parasha to BeHa'Alotekha and understand them through different ways, different perspectives, and really analyze and seeing what's going on with particular situations that were happening with Moshe.
With Moshe.
Yeah.
Specifically Moshe.
Moshe, and also how did the dialogue between God and the Jewish people via Moshe take place during the transmission of the mitzvot and Torah Shebaal Peh, the oral tradition, and the necessities of the people. This goes back to when we spoke about this whole idea of the covenant that we have with God, this berit, which was an agreement, a freely contracted agreement between God and the Jewish people. What was being discussed? Because up until this point, if we look from the time of the revelation until the end of the first year, the Jewish people are still, where the revelation took place, in front of Har Sinai.
Okay.
And as Chachamim tell us, or sages tell us, that all the mitzvot were given to Moshe and the Jewish people at Sinai. Now, if we look throughout the text, it's not all, it's the bulk. Because we have episodes where there's new things being introduced.
Sure.
And we also need to keep in mind that what was given to the Jewish people is the oral tradition of how to fulfill the mitzvot, not the text, not the scripture. The scripture, the written law,
Shebichtav.
the Torah Shebichtav, the written text, is being written throughout the course of the journey, as things are taking place. And Moshe recalling clearly the book of Bereshit, obviously, via prophecy and God, and the tradition that the Jewish people already had pertaining to that entire book. He's also reiterating in the book of Devarim a lot of things that supplement the book, the other three books of Shemot, Vayikra, and Bamidbar. Okay? And he's repeating certain things that we already know. However, he is also introducing many mitzvot in scripture form. That's the thing. In scripture, in the book of Devarim, that were never mentioned in the other books. That point is very important to understand. What ultimately became the scripture, including the non-legal narratives, but more of the mitzvot, the legal information, is something that Moshe Rabbeinu is formulating through the oral tradition that the Jewish people already had, not the other way around. This is something that many people, I think, have a hard time conceptualizing and also understanding. Most people, if you ask them what came first, the written law or the oral law, they'll tell you the written law, but that's not the case. The oral law, the mitzvot at Sinai, okay, were given to the Jewish people, transmitted, okay, and then Moshe Rabbeinu, via God, it's being put down on text. One thing to remember always, the spoken word always precedes the written word. And when I say spoken, it's not only something that is articulated, okay, but it's also thought of. An author, when he's writing a book, the words and the thoughts and the ideas are already in his mind. Then he puts it on paper. Then he re-edits it. Then, he's using different words in order to express his ideas even better. But that's the whole idea of human language first and foremost was always oral. More than this, when we learn how to speak, and when we're very young, we're not taught text. We're not taught letters. We're not even taught numbers in written form. No. The spoken word, the same thing historically, anthropologically. We know the spoken word preceded the symbols that represent the sounds and eventually the words and eventually even the definition of words. Definition of words is also part of oral tradition of every language. It's part of the culture. That is it's a fascinating subject. Everywhere that we look and our brain is processing, it's processing through a tradition, a value system that decodes what it is that our senses are capturing and making sense out of it. For example, if I will put on a screen Korean letters, okay? If you don't have a tradition of how to decode and decipher those letters, just the basic sound, you can look at it for the rest of your life. You will have no idea what that is. The same thing with math. You have no idea. And this is basic language. This is just basic symbols that represent sounds or quantities, which is values. Right? And you take it to everything around us. It's the same. How do you read a contract? You need, if it's a legal document, you need the oral tradition of the legality of that specific contract. What type of contract is it? Just because it's legal, it doesn't mean that I can apply any legal decipherment to it. No. There's different legalities. Federal, state, city, municipal. Does this have to do with medicine? Does this have to do with patents? Does this have to do with marriage, with divorce, with inheritance? All that takes play that the person who's deciphering needs to know, needs to have that mechanism of how to properly make sense of what it is that that person is reading. That's where interpretation comes into play.
So we're tasked with, so before the word was even written, we're tasked with building up this foundation in order to first speak, understand, interpret prior to anything that's being written down.
Correct. That's why the Torah She'Ba'al Peh is the deciphering system that decodes the Torah She'Bechtav, the written law. That is why Chachamim say, one of the principles, we don't learn halakha from the text itself.
Really?
Yes. We don't derive law from the text itself. We interpret the text via oral law to make a connection with the text. So what is Midrash Halakha really all about? It's not that they're legislating through the text. No. They're simply making the connection between the oral law in the text. Where do we see this? Where do we find some type of an illusion, either explicit or implicit, in the text, that we have an oral tradition of what the law is already? That is what Midrash Halakha is really doing.
So, okay, so let's take an example in the text itself, because I think this is a very taboo idea, I think.
Yes.
Right? Because when you engage in this conversation with people, and I've had this conversation in the past and debated it, right? I think there's a preconceived notion that when we say that Torah was given from Sinai, everything was given. All of Torah She'Bichtav, all of Torah She'Ba'al Peh was all given at Har Sinai.
That's the common perception.
Right. So let's go into an example of this where it says clearly in the text, V'asu lachem tzitzit, an kanfei bigdechem ledorotam, v'natnu al tzitzit. Right? When it's talking about the mitzvah tzitzit, it says make tzitzit. Okay. It's very explicit for what I need to do. Why can't I just put tzitzit anywhere here? Why not?
Because nobody knows what is tzitzit. The Torah doesn't describe what tzitzit is. Legality. Legally. What is it? Doesn't say. Why doesn't it say? because the Jewish people had a tradition knowing what tzitzit is already. So when Moshe Rabbeinu is writing those words, "V'asu lem tzitzit," make them tzitzit, God said, "Make tzitzit," yeah, we know what it is. We also now have to discuss the details, the legal details of what the definition of a tzitzit is and what it's not. Who's supposed to wear it? When? Where?
What part
How do I make it? Not the why. The why.
Not the why.
No,
Why not?
not the why. Because the why, see, this is one of the brilliant ideas of the Torah, is that Torah She'Ba'al Peh, the oral law, doesn't tell you the why. Yes, you might find some allusions to the why in the Torah. Oh, I took you out of Egypt, so therefore you do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
Because I created the world, so therefore you do Y and Z. You shouldn't mistreat the stranger because you were a stranger. Sometimes the Torah tells us the explanation, but the oral law doesn't tell it to you. Why? In order for you to find different inroads, okay, to give the mitzvah even more meaning within the context of the time and place that you live. Because that is what keeps unfolding.
So if it gave the meaning, if God gave us the meaning in the text itself.
I'll give you an example.
Sure. Okay.
I have
fine.
no idea what it is to be a slave leaving Egypt. Not only I wasn't a slave, I wasn't living 3,400 years ago. I don't know the real type of treatment that the Jewish people went through. Okay, they embittered their lives. What does that even mean? They made them work really hard. What does that mean in comparison to what? In relation to what? Right? I took you out of Egypt. You didn't take me out of Egypt. Even something so basic as that we say
right.
constantly, and we have to remind ourselves Yetziat Mitzrayim. And many mitzvot are connected to Yetziat Mitzrayim.
Right.
Why is it that the why isn't part of Torah She'Ba'al Peh? You know why? Because in every different periods of time, right, a person can relate to suffering. A person can understand what it is to be oppressed, and a person can also understand more than ever today what it means to be free. So, it gives people throughout the course of generations a stronger attachment in trying to connect the scripture and the mitzvot to my now, my present day now. I need to even interpret, be it my life, be it my reality, and connect it to my past.
So that sounds very personal.
Absolutely.
And that's very important when you're observing your own Judaism and you're going through the motions, you're performing the mitzvot. You always want to find a deeper meaning to what you're doing and why you're doing it. But how does that then fit in with the collective meaning then?
Very simple. We have always been a part of history. If I recognize myself as I'm a citizen of the Jewish people, then no matter whatever happens to the nation is also happening to me. So yes, it's true. I really don't know exactly, the experience that people had in France and Germany. I don't know, but I can definitely know the type of difficulties and oppressions and all that. Maybe not to a certain scale, which is the Holocaust, right? That what my family went through in Iraq, what Ima's family went in Syria.
Sure.
There was also fear. There was. Not on such a horrible terror scale, but still, we felt it. Even today in modern state of Israel, you don't think many people in the back of their mind are saying, when's going to be the next bombing and suicide attack?
Sure.
They, of course, they deal with their own way, or else they become psychotic and not leave their house. But it is somewhere there. Mm-hmm. There's like, I'm going on a bus. Is it going to blow up or not? I'm going to a restaurant. It's going to blow up. I'm sitting in my house. Am I going to get a missile on my head now from Iran? I'm a soldier. Am I going to be kidnapped? Understand?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a sad state of affairs as us being human. As long as humans are alive, and as long as humans are on the planet, there is evil. There is no evil in nature except the human heart, because we have this power of choosing good or evil. And that is why the Etz HaDat is termed that way on purpose. What are you going to use your dat? What are you going to use your knowledge for? Good or evil? And the only one who tells you the definition of those two categories is God through the Torah. He's the only one who has the authority to even tell us what good and evil is. What human authority can tell me what good and evil is? What human has the right to tell me what good and evil is if it doesn't come from God? Humans are fluid.
Yeah.
Millions of humans thought it's totally okay to annihilate a people, be it the Spaniards, be it in Russia, be it in Korea, in Cuba, you name it, in Germany, what?
Not lacking.
It's never, Baruch Hashem, unfortunately, you can't say this, we've always had evil when we became conscious of the power that we have to choose that. Prior to humans, called them prehistoric humans, them didn't know this power of choice, of this free will that they have.
Yeah.
They just lived with nature just like every other being, every other animal.
Yeah.
No, very different. Which is, I think, one of the most fascinating stories in the Torah.
Yeah.
The whole Adam and Eve in this garden, and everything is beautiful, and suddenly even awakens in the mind, and whoa, things take a turn. Yes, and we all go through it.
Right.
So that is what the Torah is also presenting to us, which is important. How do we deal with the evils in society? Hence, you have tzedek u'mishpat, that the Torah says what is tzedek u'mishpat, as well as what is chesed, as well as what is tzedakah, as well as how do we deal with the conflicts within our society? How do we solve those conflicts? Do we solve it with the sword through violence, which is usually the case, or do we solve it through dialogue? The Torah says, first dialogue among yourselves, even with your enemies. Try first dialogue, not from the point of weakness, no, from the point of peace, which is equivalent to good. That is one of the strategies that the Torah proposes to the Jewish people as well as to humanity. So going back to the Parasha of BeHa'Alotekha, there are certain episodes here that I think are amazing. So if we look, for example, when the Jewish people are still in Har Sinai, a year passed, Bashana Shenit, the second year, and they're getting ready to do a Pesach. Yeah, and the people, are bringing a Korban Pesach as instructed, right? And suddenly we have an episode that there were certain people who were not able to bring a Korban Pesach because they were impure due to them touching a dead human corpse. Therefore, if they're impure, you can't bring a Pesach. You have to go through a whole transition, right? From impurity to purity. It's a state of being. It's not something that is supernatural. It's not a spiritual thing like some people say. Nowhere in the Talmud is it suggested. The Torah doesn't even suggest this. The whole idea of purity and impurity is a state of being as to whether or not you can come near the sanctuary or not. You can come near God, the deity, or not.
Whether you can partake in something sanctified.
Sanctified, as well as come near. In other words, as well as have some type of, I don't want to say communion, because we don't believe in that. But I will definitely say it's the feeling of me being able to find closeness with the God that I'm worshiping. So if I'm in a state of impurity, it's off bounds. Okay? So they told Moshe, we want to be able to partake in the Pesach. Lama nigara. In other words, why is it that it's like, we're not able to do this? This is something that they took very seriously and important, which is a beautiful thing, by the way. It's wonderful. They wanted to connect with the national experience, with God taking them out of Egypt and all that. We can't do it. Why, why, in a sense, why are we being punished in a sense?
Okay, so I'm going to go back to something we discussed last week, because it seems like it may contradict what we discussed in terms of taking more on than we need to when we're not obligated.
Oh.
Right?
Well, this is the whole part of the negotiation of the covenant that the Jewish people had before the covenant is sealed. So there's still room to discuss
Okay.
as to what it is that's going to be obligatory or not. All this, the whole 40-year journey, by the way, the majority of the mitzvot were not fulfilled. They were exempt. Even Brit Milah, they were exempt, Chachamim tell us. They didn't do Brit Milah.
Right, they did it before they went into Israel.
Yeah.
Right, with Yoshua.
Yes. Right? Why? They're not in a state. They're not in a state of a permanent situation that they can actually do and things. Of course, certain things they refrain from. Fine, but as something obligatory. Yeah. Now, because again, this is a national thing. No, it's not personal anymore. This is national. We want to be part of the national worship. Sure. It's not that I can't bring my own personal thank you, Korban, to God. In 2 weeks you can do it. No, this is a
specific time.
Specific time.
Sure.
And we want to be part of the nation.
Yeah.
This is important. I mean, if it wasn't for Pesach, we wouldn't even be here.
True.
Okay?
Okay.
So Moshe says, I don't know. I don't know. We showed you something tremendous about Moshe that we'll talk about the next thing, his humility, his anava. Okay? So Moshe brings, he tells God X, Y, and Z. God says, all right, guess what? Though anybody who was impure or anybody that was distant and wasn't able to bring the Pesach on the proper day, which is the 14th day of Nisan, can bring it the following month on the 14th day of that one. Hence, we have something called Pesach Sheni, the second Pesach, for those who are not able to partake in the Korban Pesach. What does this tell us? It tells us that the needs of the people were top priority as to what this covenant is going to be.
They had to say.
Absolutely. That's the whole point of the covenant. The people had a say into what it's going to be in here.
So it wasn't like, and I wanted to touch on this when we discussed the covenant, but we're going on a little tangent here. It's not like the perception that Onakadosh Baruch Hu and unfortunately, the traditional understanding of God holding the mountain over the people's head and coercing them into accepting it. And they say, yes, we'll do it, right?
Right.
We're not going to go, well, that's the midrash that I think we should really unpack another time.
Yes, definitely.
But the point is that when it says that the people heard what God said and Moshe Rabbeinu relayed to them, and they said Naaseh, and then going back and forth, after all of Sefer Mishpatim, and Moshe Rabbeinu presents what was discussed, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu was then going to tell them. They end up and they say, you know what, with no one else around, God seemingly not present, like Chacham Fa'ur he brings in the horizontal society. And he says that the people, after listening to everything Moshe Rabbeinu says, they say, Naaseh v'nishma. With full consent, not coerced, not forced. And that's the true principle of the Beri, going back to what we discussed a few minutes also about free will, that we chose to be a part of it. And as a result, we're now a partner in this negotiation that we have needs and wants that we need to be taken care of as well. And if we need more or less, that's something that would be discussed with God as well.
Throughout the 4-year journey. This is the first example. And this is an example right before they start journeying. I'm going to give you another example at the end of the journey. okay, in a second. But going back to what you said, Na'aseh v'nishma. Na'aseh, yes, we're going to fulfill. Why do we need nishma? Nishma is a conversation. To listen is perception, understanding, as well as communicating. In Judaism, there's no word in Hebrew for, what's that word? A person who always follows orders.
Obedient?
Obedient. There is no word in Hebrew for obedient. Although in modern Hebrew we say, what's that word they use? Mushma. That's the modern equivalent of obedient. What's the root? Shama. Lishmoa. We don't have. Lishmoa means I choose to listen, number one. I choose to listen. Number two, I am processing the information and I'm going to also respond to that information, be it verbally or be it through an action. You convinced me. You didn't convince me. Let me now rebuttal. Now you need to be lishmoa. Here we have God is shomea to the people.
Not just that, the people first listened,
Yeah.
and then they're coming back and saying, wait,
Yeah.
we want another chance too.
Yeah.
And God is now listening back.
Exactly. See, that is the Torah. This is, again, fundamental points. That's why the mitzvot are not commandments. Wrong. What a horrible term. Horrible. They're not commandments. The mitzvot are the legal obligations and responsibilities that we have as stipulated in the covenant. They're legal. Why? It's a legal covenant that we had back and forth. Not a command.
So tziva is not command.
Instruct. Legally instructed. If it says tziva Moshe in reference to a mitzvah, that it means legally instructed. Okay? If it's just tziva casual, no legality, it's just instructed. Because ultimately, what is the point of a tzivui? Instruction. That's what it is. That's within the Torah framework.
Right.
Others is a different story.
Right. And I think the translation of the word mitzvah was taken from, I think it was the King James Bible.
James.
That first wrote that the word mitzvah means to command.
And where they get it from, on purpose, they took it. This is part of the church tradition, very early, that on purpose they wanted to demonstrate that the so-called Old Testament is oppressive.
Right.
It's harsh, and you must obey. You must listen, and then, people couldn't handle it. It's too much for people to handle responsibilities as to what the Father wants. Hence, we need his son, Jesus, that introduced love.
Yeah.
Not mitzvot.
Right.
It's the love of things. So even though, there's certain things, even according to Christianity, you can't do, right? And they do have certain things that they're supposed to do. It's not through the law. It's through love. Whereas we say, no, it's because God loves us, he gives us law. Because without law, you have chaos. You might have a lot of love, but that love can become a disaster.
It can be manipulated.
Love is always being manipulated. Not only that, what is really the definition of love if not something subjective? Law ain't subjective. Law is objective. Here it is. This is the definition of the rules. This is the definition of a mitzvah. This is the definition. Love is a different ballgame. This is what you are obligated to do or not to do. Who is obligated also? When, where, how? All those things are part of the old tradition. And it's not because God said so, is because we agreed so with God.
And I think now to piggyback off of that into I think one of the most important verses that recurs throughout the text, that there's only one law that's given to
Everyone.
Everyone. Doesn't matter who it is, whether it's the ger, the toshav, the resident, the stranger, someone who comes into the berit itself, someone who's been a part of the berit for thousands of years. It doesn't matter. There's only one law that tells us what we need to do in order to fulfill the mitzvah.
Correct. Not only that, in order to be under the law. So therefore, you do not have different tier systems like other faiths as well as other nationalities have. We're the first people in history to ever come up with this absurd idea that there's one law for everyone under it. What a crazy idea. Look how long it took our country to transition to that. We're living in the freest country in history. But they got this idea from the Torah, the founding fathers. But the implementation of it took time.
Right.
Okay. Another example I want to give you. So the second Pesach, people requested, God, absolutely. Yes. Sure. Again, beautiful. God listens. Right? The second example is one of the last things that we have given to the Jewish people in the book of Bamidbar. It's in the last part. And it had to do with the 5 daughters of Tzelofchad.
Right.
Since the guy didn't have any sons, so therefore the inheritance of the land, the portion, is like up for grabs. Basically, whoever's going to marry them, the husband is going to take over. So if they're going to marry outside of the tribe of Menashe, right, then that portion of land, a field, is going to go to their tribe. So they're taken out. Their portion is taken out. And what's amazing is this. Who brings the case to Moshe? The 5 women. This is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Look at the openness of dialogue. The status of how women saw themselves already, and this is in the 40th year, right? Of saying, hold on a second, what is going to happen to our rights? This belongs to us. Okay?
Yeah.
Even though this is, a so-called male-dominated society, no. Moshe says, I don't know. Let me bring this case to God again.
I think he says, Imdu
veshme'a,
right?
Right? Stand here and I'm going to hear what God is going to instruct me. And guess what? God says, they are just. What they're saying is something very just. Not only it's right, it's just. Fascinating. So, God, again, gives Moshe a mitzvah. That if that's going to be a case of somebody only has daughters, this is how you're going to solve. You see, this is how you're going to resolve the issue. There's resolutions. The Torah comes to resolve many issues in society that will occur, that do occur also. So that's why I'm trying to demonstrate that at the beginning of the journey, we have a case of a need. At the end of the journey, we have a case, there was a need, and both needs are taken consideration and resolved. I happen to think that there were many more examples of this back and forth between God and the Jewish people as to how do we want to structure our society in the land of Israel. How are we structuring this? Sure. Yes, we have a lot of basic premises. We have a lot of basic things. Now, there's some nitty-gritty. There's situations. There are cases. What do we do? But it has to be part of the covenant.
Sure. So I want to correct a few things. The pasuk that quoted, it wasn't Imdu veshme'a, but I think that was in our Parasha.
Yes.
That was my mistake. What it says is, Vayakrev Moshe et mishpatan lifnei Adonai. But not just that. Then God responds and says, Ken benot tzelofchad doverot. It's as if, not to say God forgot, but
no.
He's like, they're raising a great point. You know what? They need it. They want it. Okay, here we go. This is what we're going to do about it. But I think what's also fascinating is that these are the bookends of the two examples. And I think it represents that, so to speak, the lowest parts of the society. People who were impure were always put aside and cast aside as, outcasts. We don't want to be people around.
Yeah.
And they end up bringing the first case. And then the second case, where in society, where it's a male-dominated society, where women were seemingly powerless and had no voice and could not even object to anything, they're the last example that Moshe Rabbeinu, that God brings in the Torah, and says, the point being that it's not just it's anybody who wants to be a part of this, anybody who has a question. Doesn't matter which part of society that you're in.
And it finishes with the women
Correct.
who are usually, not taking consideration.
Exactly.
This is it's like a full circle.
It's
wholesomeness.
Yeah.
The Torah is mushlemet. The Torah is a complete, wholesome system that again leads to peace.
Torah Adonai Timimah, Meshivat Nafesh, right?
Yeah, so again, that's what it's about. This is it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's topic number 1.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Yeah.
Really fascinating.
Second topic.
Yeah.
You're gonna edit it, obviously.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Second topic has to do with Moshe having problems. He's having problems handling the situation of the Jewish people once they start the journey. So far, they've been a year in Har Sinai. The only national bad situation was the golden calf, which was very dire, no good. It was almost over. And as well as when the 2 sons of Aaron also died. Okay? But Moshe handled it. Moshe handled the golden calf, no problem. Okay? Even,
Yeah.
having a whole discussion with God.
Yeah.
Okay?
But he's
handling it.
Right.
He doesn't say to God, I'm done. Right? Here is just the beginning of the journey where they just start to leave.
Yeah.
Problems start. Yeah, because they're out of their comfort zone. They're out of their comfort zone, which is such a profound message. Okay? That life is a struggle. Real life is a struggle. Right? A dynamic life, the Torah life, a responsible life. Yeah, there's struggle. You want growth? You got to go through challenges, struggles, and uncomfortable situations. Yes, it's challenging. Yeah, but at the end, through this transition, you start to realize who you really, really are. Okay? You start to realize your strengths, your weaknesses, where you need to improve, where you also need to build on that you're already good at. And this way, it gives you more meaning in life because you realize that your use suddenly is greater than what you thought before. You achieve something that you didn't think you could achieve. So this is something that the Jewish people are going to go through this whole 40-year journey. And of course, people are going to die out, and then you're going to have a newer generation that's going to take it to the next level, way beyond than the ancestors ever did.
Right.
So the people are complaining. They want food. They're tired of the man. They've been eating it for a year, whatever it was, and they're crying to their families. They're saying Mitzrayim was even better. We had better food there.
We had fish.
The fish, the zucchini, the watermelon.
The melons.
Okay.
The onions.
So, a lot
the
of
garlic.
things. Basically, also, whenever we humans want to complain, there's always room to complain. We're not so freely when it comes to giving compliments, and it's, a vice, not even a virtue, but we're definitely free. We're definitely more loose when it comes to criticism, when it comes to complaints, just like we had an episode today.
We're very prone. We're very prone.
Yes.
to complain.
We are, and it's not good. It's not good in the eyes of God, because when you do that, you don't realize the blessing that God is giving you. You're focusing on the lack and not the blessing of God.
So it's
So indirectly, it's a criticism to God. Indirectly. Sometimes it is directly.
Sometimes it's directly, yeah.
Here, it's a criticism to God that they're complaining.
Of course, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, sure.
So
sure.
Moshe says, What did you give me this major task to do? What, did I give birth to? Did I conceive them? Did I give birth to them? That I got to carry them around like a woman who nurses her child? I mean, what the figurative language is fascinating, right? Where am I going to give these people meat to eat? I don't know. Where?
Like, what am
They
I
wanted
supposed to-
beef.
What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
It's like, God, I knew this was going to be hard, but I
Yeah.
didn't think it was going to be this
Because
bad.
at this point, everything is on his head.
Yeah.
Okay? So God tells him, fine. Grab 70 representatives of the Jewish people, because there were 70 families, right? And with their shoterav, meaning the people who are also in charge of making sure the people are following the law, all right? Whatever customs they had. And come to the Ohel, come to Ohel Moed, and you're going to be there with them, and I'm going to inspire them through you. Okay?
The language is very interesting.
Very,
in the
very
Torah,
interesting
and
language.
Yeah. Ve'atzalti min haruach asher alecha v'samti alehem. Right.
Yeah.
It's very strange language, so
It
to
is.
speak.
It is.
Right?
Because
I'm gonna
we're
disseminate. It's like
No.
from Moshe Rabbeinu, we're going to
No,
disseminate.
it's not
from
something
you.
physical. It's just basically they're going to get inspiration to the fact of through the fact that you are a prophet that I can communicate directly, and you're with them. Okay, they're going to sense that. They're going to also feel inspired, to be able to have a leadership role, just like you, and they're going to be your assistants dealing with the matters of the people. So not everything is going to come to you. This also shows here again Moshe's anava, humility. Because usually when we have superheroes, be it modern or be it in the past, Roman or Greek or Babylonian, when you read their mythologies, the superhero never, ever demonstrates weakness. Never, ever demonstrates that he cannot do. No. I can do anything. You can do everything. You can do anything. Anything. Moshe says, I can't do this. What did you give me? Acknowledging our weaknesses is a strength. How? I know what I need to work on. I know what I need to improve, and I know my limits. When we know that we're limited, we humble ourselves. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't strive and you shouldn't, do your best in what it is that you're doing. I'm not saying that. No, but we definitely need to know that we do have limits, both intellectually and physically. We do. Not everybody is given certain talents, and not everybody is born in situations that they can propel themselves to become, a billionaire. It doesn't really matter what it is. But here Moshe is acknowledging he can't do it. So that's a sign of, again, anava, humility. And which is something fascinating. God says, don't worry. Tell them I'm going to feed them meat. They're going to get a lot of meat. Not 1, not 2, not 10, 30 days until it's going to come out of their nostrils. Basically, it's going to be something that they're going to be disgusted and they're going to despise. Now, the reaction that Moshe has is absolutely fascinating. Moshe says, hold on a second. I have just the males. I have 600,000 males, right, who are over the age of 20. And you're telling me that you're going to feed them meat for a whole month? If we take all the sheep and the calves that we have and slaughter them, right, it ain't going to be enough. And of course, he exaggerates the language with the fish when he says, if we take all the fish that they can find in the sea, obviously they were near. They were near a sea, by the way. Right? It ain't going to be enough. So what? Moshe's doubting God? Moshe's not doubting God, per se. Moshe is simply trying to understand through human reason, how is this naturally possible? Moshe is the most inquisitive mind. Moshe does not take things for granted, and he's not someone who has blind faith at all. And it begins when he first sees the so-called burning bush.
I'd say it starts even before that. It started when he was questioning his own identity, when he was standing in the palace watching the Jews being slaves, and he was questioning those things, those core fundamentals at that point.
Yeah, but there's nothing about God. Here I'm talking
We're
about.
talking specifically questioning God.
Here I'm talking about. It's not questioning God. It's actually trying to understand how can we explain natural phenomena? How can you have a bush burning and it's not being consumed?
Right.
How's that possible?
Right. He was fascinated by it.
Same thing with here. He doesn't take it as, oh, blah, 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 blah. He's not a dummy at all. Not only that, here the same thing he says, what? How can you provide all that?
Yeah.
Where are you going to get this from? It's not that the Jewish people didn't have, they had cattle, they did. But what, enough to feed this amount of people?
Right.
That's one of the reasons why he's able to have direct communication with God. His level of perception was not to take things for granted. He wants to understand clearly, right? How does God work within this universe? And not just have blind faith and not say, oh, because God can do it. That's a horrible answer. I mean, God can do it. You can't explain how God can do it. I think one of the we're living in the greatest time in human history of understanding the mechanics of the universe, both on the big scale and the microscopic scale. Absolutely fascinating. This is God's intelligence on display. This is what Moshe wanted to understand. The same thing is that I want to know how you relate.
It's like, how do you do it?
How do you do it?
What's your secret?
What is your relationship as how you're going to conduct yourself indirectly with humans? Again, that's why he has that capacity of prophecy. Because of because of this inquisitiveness that he had. The answer that God gives him says, absolutely, I love it. God tells him, Hayad alunai tiksar. What? You mean to tell me that my hand is not going to
be shortened?
Shortened. It's not going to be able to provide. Ata tireh.
Yeah.
You know, now you'll see.
Now you'll see.
What's going to happen tomorrow? And of course, you have a wind and all that. See, through the forces of nature, God manifests his will, his strength, etc.
So I have a question, because intertwined with the story of the people complaining and God giving them the meat is the story of Moshe Rabbeinu appointing the 70.
Yeah.
And the story, and also the point that the 70 then congregate at Ohel Moed, they receive prophecy, and then Yoshua comes up to Moshe Rabbeinu and says,
Eldad u'Medad.
Eldad u'Medad. There are
Two guys.
Two guys who continue to prophesy after everyone else got up and left. There are two guys who stayed.
Kelaem, imprison them.
Imprison them. And Moshe Rabbeinu tells them, no. What?
He says what? In other words, are you jealous for me? Right?
Yeah.
Then Moshe says, I hope that all of the Jewish people will have nevuah and become nevi'im. That's another sign of his humility.
Right. It's like if only. So my question is with all, why are these two stories intertwined with each other? What's the relationship between the two?
Struggle.
Okay, people struggle. The Am Yisrael struggle with their desires. And
Moshe struggling also.
Moshe struggle also.
Yeah. So what is it, in order to be able to overcome struggle, what do you need?
Is it laying out the two different paths of dealing with the struggle? One path is to overindulge in whatever desire that you're trying.
That's not how you deal with the struggle.
That's what happens to Am Yisrael.
And look what happened later.
Right.
They got punished.
Right.
So that is not. They dealt with it horribly, but both are trying to deal with the struggle that they're having. Okay, it's a challenge. Mm-hmm. Right. So why is it that the Jewish people failed in that struggle? Whereas the Shivim Zekinim, the 70 elders, will eventually become like the Supreme Court of the Jewish people. They succeeded. Why? One is following the path of indulgence and strictly to quell and their lust for something physical. That is not godly at all. That's pure Yetzer Hara. Period.
Hedonism.
Hedonism. Okay? And it doesn't end there. Okay? Whereas the other case with the 70 elders, what did they need in order to overcome?
Prophecy.
Inspiration.
Inspiration.
That's it. When God is involved in the formula of our problem resolutions, when God is involved in the formula of how am I going to achieve my goal because I'm going through a challenge, if God is part of that with me, I'll succeed. It doesn't mean that I will get the exact result that I'm looking for. No. We need to have humility. But I'll make the right decisions as to how God would instruct me to make the decision. Because a decision always has yes or no. A decision is usually right, wrong, good or evil, immoral, immoral, beneficial, non-beneficial. It's pretty much that. So if God is part of that equation, then I should be confident that things are going to turn out okay, because that's God's blessing to me. That is, that's what we need the mitzvot, reminders. That's what we need tefillah.
Right.
All these little.
Right. What's funny is that in both instances, God is providing in both instances, but what are the people doing with what they're provided? Right? Meaning to say that it could have been that if the people were more tame, so to speak, they could have taken the meat, they could have said thank you, do korbanot, whatever, right? And have been grateful, not stuffed their faces. And that would have been receiving the blessing from HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a positive manner, even if it is material. But you're saying, but what you're doing with this material good is that you're sanctifying it and saying that it's for something greater than just fulfilling, quelling your desires.
Greater than you.
And that's where the people failed.
Yeah. Now, keep in mind, still the people just left Egypt about a year and a few months ago.
They're still adjusting.
They're still adjusting to this whole idea of we have this total freedom and we have this enormous quantity. Guess what? They behaved in a way that's like anarchy. Now we understand also why, without law, be it from God, or be it in a society that has just laws, there's anarchy, there's chaos. Oh boy. We do not want to be in a place where there's no law and that the rule of law is not respected.
Mob. We don't want the mob rule.
And it's only, it only relates to us humans. Only us. Because we have this power of free will.
Right.
We know, we know good and evil. We know.
Yeah.
So we're in danger. Okay? I'm going to use one of the most beautiful lines that really I've ever read by Professor Heschel in one of his books. He writes so profound, because he speaks about this whole free will and good and evil and how we have this power. He says, man can be the most beautiful dream for God. And man can also be God's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
How many times? And this, yeah. Just that formula is
It
so powerful.
encapsulates free will in such a powerful manner, and especially during the time that he lived through as well.
Yes.
Seeing World War, having to escape Germany, seeing World War II, seeing what was going on in Russia,
the
horrors,
yeah.
Seeing the horrors, living with the people who escaped and hearing their horrors. You can only imagine.
So what is the Torah trying to lead us to? It's trying to make us God's beautiful vision of us.
Right.
It's challenging, yeah. Yeah, because we're finite and we have a very powerful Yetzer Hara and physical needs that we have. Yes, so therefore we have these regulations, and the covenant and these regulations are in agreement with God, not with man. This is again.
So I want to go back to this point that you spoke about before with the interpreting interpreter. I think that it's also important that the interpretation of the world that we take, that we understand the world and we interpret it through a lens of the Torah. Meaning to say that when you're talking about the interpreter system and the interpreted system, right? Torah shebichtav is interpreted, and we are the ones who interpret what's in the Torah shebichtav.
Yes.
Right? So there's a Torah shebe'al peh as well. I think this is something that we spoke about many times, that expands just beyond the book.
Yes.
It expands into how we perceive the world and the universe itself. And when we interpret the world through the lens of whether God is at the center, and I think we touched upon this in prior episodes, God is at the center or is the human at the center? And that's where we start our interpretation with. The paths deviate so much from one another that there's nothing in between.
No, there's no gray area.
There's no gray area with how you interpret it. So when you start interpreting the world, and we're constantly interpreting the world, we're interpreting people's actions, we're interpreting what we read online, we're interpreting videos that we watch on YouTube. It doesn't matter. The interpretation is constant, whether we like it or not. And it's a question of how aware will we be of it, and what mechanism will we use in order to refine our capacity to interpret in a more godly way than not.
That is why God gave the Torah to humanity.
We needed it.
Absolutely.
We needed it.
Or else we would have self-destructed. Once we became super conscious of ourselves, of the abilities that we have beyond hunters and gatherers, the ability that we have with our mind, the use of the mind to create civilizations, create languages, create mathematics, create technologies. What are we going to use it for now? Because we know we have the power of this choice that we can make. So we can use all that we've created and done for good or evil. That it can be on a national scale, on a world scale, civilization, as well as in personal lives. One's own home, one school, one community, one little town, one little village, it doesn't matter. On an airplane, it doesn't matter. Imagine on an airplane, the pilot says, you know what, I hate humanity. I'm going to crash because I hate humanity. Go convince him otherwise in the middle of flight. It's amazing how we trust these people to do what they do for us.
I mean, from any lens, whether it's just the food that we eat, right?
So
can
many
you imagine,
things.
Can you imagine?
So many things.
Yeah.
You go to a restaurant. How do you know?
No idea.
How do you know? Again, I discuss this with my students often in high school, and they're like terrified. I said, relationships, the core value of any relationship, it doesn't matter big or small, is trust.
Yeah.
If you don't have trust, everything breaks down.
Yeah.
And I give them really stark examples. I go to them, you guys just came from lunch from the cafeteria. How do you guys don't know that they didn't poison that food? How do you know? Because we had hundreds of kids eating. Just one maniac, just one, not the crew of 20. One maniac is going to poison the food, and guess what? Either you're going to die or you're going to be in the hospital. How easy is it? More than this, which one of you, I tell them like this, which one of you today can be 100% sure you're going to go home? initially when they say, oh, all of us, I go, stop. How do you know? How do you know when you're going to get into that car, you're going to make it home?
Even before you get to the car. Yeah.
So, don't we have a trust factor that we trust that in general people are going to respect the laws of driving? But guess what? Sometimes there's a maniac, that will go through a red light and in an intersection and crash and kill someone.
Yeah.
I go, how often does that happen? That happens. Or some guy is speeding like a lunatic and he's a young driver or whatever it is and he crashed. So if we didn't have trust in society, even more, how can we trust when it comes to business? I go to the store, I'm buying that. How do I know that what is that I'm buying is 100% is really the thing that I'm really buying? It could be something totally different. I don't know. So it's the trust factor.
Right.
So law protects that trust factor within our society. Right? And what's interesting is this goes to prehistoric times and hunters and gatherers times. They had their own basic trust factor that if they're going to do the hunt, we're going to trust each other that everybody's going to do the task that needs to bring them the animal. And when the woman would go out to the field and gather what they need to do, we're going to trust that they're going to go to the right place and make sure that they're not going to bring any leaves or herbs that are going to be poisonous because they knew the difference, or berries, and they're going to eat. So this is something very ancient, that in order for there to be cohesion in society, we had to have that trust values. Comes civilizations, we need something more than just, we trust each other. No. We need to protect this trust factor.
It's sacred.
With laws.
Right.
As well as with rituals even.
Well, it's an embodiment of the trust, that because you're sacrificing to something greater, but you're doing it alongside people with you.
Yeah. And comes the Torah later on.
Yeah.
Right? And solidifies this trust between God and man and man and man. That's it.
It's fascinating.
No, it is.
No, it's a fascinating concept. I think about that element so much. Trust. It's really the basis of everything.
It's the basis of all relationships.
It's the basis of all relationships.
Oh.
Well,
not love, not liking, not even hesed, not even tzedakah. No. First, there has to be a trust factor, even when it comes to those things.
Well, it undergirds it, because if you don't trust if someone does a kindness to you, you could be skeptical of the kindness and say, I don't trust this guy. I think he's trying to manipulate me and trying to get me.
Yeah. He's giving me some food.
What a nice guy. Or you could say, I don't know about that. I don't know.
Again, Baruch Hashem, really, we're living in times, as well as in countries, that it's not thought of, right? It's like an underlying subconscious thing that
it's assumed.
We just assume.
There's an.
Yeah.
I mean,
unless somebody breaks it,
that.
right? And so therefore, unless somebody breaks it, we got a problem. So do you know why we think this way?
It would be crazy.
We'd be paranoid.
We couldn't live with each other.
We would be psychotic. Yeah. We'd be psychotic. Everything would not function. Nothing would function.
Nothing would function. No.
Okay? Even I give my students another example. I go, isn't it amazing that we're in this beautiful little room? Why is it that you trust that this roof ain't going to collapse on your head right now? Because we trust that the engineers and the construction, they followed the code.
Yeah.
That the city came and inspected and made sure that the concrete and that the steel and the beams and everything. I go, even in your house. Everything. I go, everything. It's everywhere. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. We need it. No, we need it. 100%.
Okay, so I think I had to. I think the second subject of the Parasha we discussed of Moshe, like saying, "Hold on a second, God, I want to understand how you're going to do this," and it's something that we should also do. Science comes to explain to us how is it that God created this fascinating universe. How does it work? How do they come to be? And we shouldn't just say, oh, it's just there. No, that's blindness. God does not want blindness. God wants inquisitive minds. And we're living, again, it's every day lately, new things. I'll give you an example. So I did a pit stop at Dr. Kensberg's house on Shabbat, and we were talking. And he was explaining to me a new device that he came up with, invented, and with a company that what he does, now he can do it with perfection because the electrical pulse that it emanates to the cell that he wants to take out, that's a bad cell in the cells in the heart,
Okay.
can be completely destroyed because the tool that he invented is instead of 2,000 something electrical, it's 20,000.
Oh, wow.
And it's something that is showing major success. And they're now going to start experimenting this with cancer cells to see if it works. So I go to him, so what was really the problem with the 2,000 to the 20,000? He goes, the problem with the 2,000 is that since, and this is fascinating, since when the cell would be zapped with the 2,000 tool, it still had very, like fractions of seconds to repair itself.
To regenerate.
To repair itself.
Wow.
And they weren't able to
fully
take
eliminate it.
Right.
Wow.
Okay?
Okay.
This device, it doesn't give it enough time to do it because it's so powerful. He goes, and he goes, I'm dealing with nanosecond. That's the sweet spot. He goes, but what's interesting is this. We tried to do it in a fraction of a nanosecond, the same thing, it didn't work. So the sweet spot was in between. I go, this is fascinating. It's as if the cell knows. He goes, it doesn't know, whatever, but that's how it works.
That's its function.
That's how it works. I go, and what makes the cell do what it does to regenerate or repair itself? He goes, electricity.
Oh, wow.
I go, there's electricity. He goes, we have electricity in our whole body. The heart beats because of electricity. Our neurons, electricity. So I go to him, explain to me, how is it that we have electricity in our body, in our cell? So he explained to me that there's 3 chemicals in our bodies, right? That is ions, but I don't know 90% what he's talking. I don't know. Okay, but it's fascinating. I'm listening to him saying, "Oh my gosh," I'm listening to him and saying, "God," I say, "Rabbi Rami, listen." He's telling me what God created. He goes to me, and that's how come we have this and that. I go, so you want to tell me because we have these 3 chemicals that work in unison that makes electricity in our body, that makes our cells work? And he goes, yes. I go, can you explain to me how those 3 chemicals, organic chemicals, figured this out to make our bodies alive with this? He goes, no one can explain that. It's God. And I go to him, how can anybody think that this all came to be on its own, just chemicals, whatever?
It's like now more than ever.
He goes, it's impossible. It's impossible that this came out of on its own. It can't be. And this is what I say. I go, today to say that it all came out of pure fluke and chance of improbabilities and impossibilities is unreasonable than to say that there's
got to be something behind
something behind this that makes this all work, and we say it's Alonai.
Yeah.
That's more reasonable because we see how everything in this universe, including our own bodies and cells, it's not one thing, it's systems that work within systems that make everything work. That is complexity, that's sophistication. There's nothing simple in the universe.
No.
Everything has to be purely fine-tuned.
Yeah.
So fine-tuned for for there to be that equilibrium. You take that tuning off a little bit, things start to go haywire.
And that's what that's the point of Moshe. Questioning and trying to figure out more and trying to understand more. But again, he's coming from a place of knowing what his base is, which is God.
Yes.
Right? That's the difference.
Yes.
Again, that's the difference.
Understanding how does God make the universe function,
Right.
including the natural phenomena. How?
Yeah. So it's not just to say, how does this work? I think it's probably more accurate to say, how did God manifest this to work?
Correct.
It's more accurate, and I think it brings a lot more meaning as opposed to, how does this work? Oh, it works because X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. No, there's...
Look, so many of the verses and chapters in Tehillim are speaking about the beauty and the wonders of nature. And you're going back 3,000 years ago, that they saw things strictly by visual observation. Today, there are worlds and worlds of worlds all around us. The microscopic, the microbial, it's a world, it's a universe within itself. Like it's in our bodies, it's on our bodies, it's everywhere.
It's amazing. Yeah. No, it's incredible.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, do you want to do a third one?
I think we should do a third one because this is,
Okay.
I love your chidush. I love your chidush on this, on this third section because it really, I think it encapsulates the first two in such a manner that cannot be more clear. And you have phenomenal insights on this, so take it away.
So the third subject is the last subject of a very famous episode. What happens between Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam?
Yeah.
Sorry, Miriam, Aaron, and Moshe.
Okay. I understand. Yeah.
The episodes begin by saying that Miriam and Aaron spoke about Moshe concerning his wife. Okay, so hold on. So if we look at the verse, it starts with the singular, but the Daber Miriam. Chachamim tell us that she began the conversation.
She initiated.
She initiated the so-called gossip.
Mm-hmm.
And Aaron, Chachamim say he was silent. So what do the sages say? A person who hears the gossip, it's as if he's speaking the gossip himself.
Right. Like the bystander.
Yeah, the bystander, yeah.
That's the bystander.
But however, other Mefarshim say that he also, he also was like, that's right. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Al odot ha'isha hakushit asher lakach. Moshe, it tells us that he married a Cushite woman, ki isha chushit lakach, because he took a Cushite woman. This is bizarre. Why is it saying it twice? Why repetitive? That's a question. And who is this Cushite woman? We know that he married a woman called Tzipporah. Yeah. She was from the tribe of Midian, the territory of Midian. It was a big territory, the Midianites. Okay. She's not termed a Cushite woman. This is a little bizarre.
Right. It sounds derogatory.
Definitely it's derogatory. That's why there's a situation.
Yeah.
And then they say, what? Only God spoke to Moshe?
Where do you get from one to the other?
Extremes.
How do you get
He also spoke to us. Right? And then it says, and God heard. God is always conscious. Now, what's interesting is this. When she says also, God also spoke to us, basically saying, Moshe's prophecy isn't unique. Not only that, didn't the other 70 people also get prophecy? Okay, Moshe is he's just like one of us. What's so special about him? And it's in reference to his wife. Okay, so comes the Chachamim, Midrash commentators. Okay. They say that when Moshe is in Har Sinai, Yitro, it's his brother-in-law, because the scripture says that Reuel was his brother-in-law Yitro, comes to meet him with his wife and his two sons. In Parashat Yitro.
Right, it says this, yeah.
Because it says that Moshe sent her away. When did he send her away? In the middle of the journey, when he's going back to Egypt, right, in Parashat Shemot, that whole episode in the inn and the Brit and Tzipporah,
Brit
she
Milah,
cuts the Brit
yeah.
Milah.
Yeah.
He says, my son is in danger, had Brit Milah. So he sent her, it seems that to be he sent her back. That's what our sages say. And since she came back, and after the revelation, Chachamim say that he didn't have physical relationships with her anymore. Okay? Whereas Miriam and Aharon said, we didn't separate from our wives. That's the context. That's the context. So what's so unique about him? How can he separate from his wife? So some commentators say that Miriam was advocating on behalf of Tzipporah. Okay? Some commentators say that she was being critical, that he separated from his wife. Why? You're not so special. We have nevuah just like you.
You're a human being just like us.
Yeah. You have needs just like us. Okay?
Right.
Clearly, there's a little mess going on.
Sibling rivalry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These people are in their 80s.
I think that's overlooked.
Right? I know. Really, they're not 23 or 50. No, they're in their 80s. Are you serious? Are you kidding?
That's a funny point. That is so funny.
They'll tell you that when it comes to gossip, it's ageless. When people want to see the so-called flaws of others, it doesn't matter what age you are.
Right.
Oh, no. The flaw is the person who's seeing flaws. And when it comes to Lashon Hara, it's usually the flaws that we see in the individual and with their superficialness.
It's slim pickings. Yeah.
It starts usually with the
It starts very
outer
superficial.
layer,
Yeah, and then it
goes in.
And then it goes in.
How does it start?
It starts with the woman,
with the woman.
and then it goes to like
Not only
the
that,
essence of the.
It gives us the adjective, kushit. And not only it says ki'isha, what's the problem? He's married. No, she's kushit. Now, what does kushit mean? So some commentators say kushit from the land of Kush, Sudan, Ethiopia, suggesting that she was very dark-skinned. Some commentators say, like Sa'adiyah, Kushit, they reference it to other Pesukim in Tanakh, that Kushit is also something that had to do with beauty, or maybe look exotic. Of course, exotic relative to who? To Bnei Israel.
Right.
As well as to the family members that Aaron and Miriam, they married within the tribe.
She was different.
She was different.
Yeah.
Another which is interesting, but it's not accepted, by the way. Another interpretation says that this is lashon sagin ahor. In other words, this was like a use of language which opposite euphemism that you actually kushit, that she was really very white.
Okay.
But most likely it doesn't flow.
Yeah.
Okay?
Sure.
Whatever the case is, it's about his wife, who is termed she's the Kushit woman, derogatory. And then they connect it to his prophecy, because that's how Lashon Hara begins.
It was questioning the integrity, his integrity and his essence.
Of course.
That's the point.
Yes.
Right? He chose this G, and he's getting this nevuah, just like we get nevuah. And they probably had this chip on their shoulder because they married within. They married prominent people within their clan. Right?
They did.
So to them, it's like
she's a foreign woman.
Yeah.
So I think one of the reasons why this episode is here, okay, in the Torah, because again, this is between them. It's like, what does it have to do with this? This is not something national. God says no. God does not discriminate. We do. Usually, we have the tendency of keeping people who are not like us arm's length, keep away.
Tribal,
sure.
Yeah.
And she was a foreign woman. She was a Midian woman. Not only that, she's the daughter of a Kohen Gadol. More so.
Right.
Of a pagan Kohen Gadol.
Right. Tzipporah, yes.
And he married her. how I understand this whole situation is that they're being critical of Moshe Rabbeinu's lineage.
Ooh. And that's something, but and that's also, I think, very, very deep in the Near East culture, Egyptian culture. This is
in Semitic culture, it's
Semitic culture
very
is
deeply
very
ingrained.
deep.
Who you marry? Who? Bit, from which bit are you? Which family are you? Oh,
Right.
you're from that bit? Oh, you're from that? Ah.
Yeah.
God says, don't do this. All humans are created in my image, God says. This is unacceptable. Which is going to lead to the more important factor. You're questioning his prophecy? What? You didn't see me speaking to him directly at Sinai, as it says? I didn't speak to you the way I spoke to him. I don't speak to you the way I speak to him. And that is where God does not come to address the Cushite woman.
Not at all.
He comes to address the prophecy issue. And interestingly enough, it says that Moshe was the most humble man on the face of the earth. And we have episodes in the past that demonstrates to us. The fact that he even listens to his brother-in-law Yitro advice, which is
back in
amazing.
Sefer Shemot, sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's even, wow, that's great. Who listens to their in-laws' advice? Right? What the hell do they know? Right? So he's very anav.
Okay. Sure.
That is why he's able to have direct communication with God. Because when Moshe viewed himself out of the picture, when we take ourselves out of the picture, the whole, it's filled only with Borei Olam, only with God. This is something we spoke about last week. That Chachamim say any place where you have arrogance, God is not there.
Yeah.
Because the human fills it in. I'm it. Okay? I'm the greatest. But wherever you have humility, you'll find God.
Right.
I'm going to tell you something that last week I connected with this, something that was amazing. Sometimes I on YouTube,
Yeah. Sure.
I watch these short videos of these guys that they fake, either they fake that they're homeless,
Oh, sure. Of course.
right?
Yeah.
And they want to see if people will help them, give them clothes or $1 and this, and then they give him like $100.
Yeah. Of course.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's this guy. He's more recently, I think. He started to do this, and the guy he has no shoes, so he goes to another homeless guy, and you should see that how people who are in dire strait help those who are in dire strait, which is fascinating.
Really.
Okay, and when finally the person acknowledges, he goes, "Thank you, and this is for you." He goes, "What's this for me?" "No,
Yeah.
I'm doing an experiment." "What do you mean?" "No, I wanted to see how kind humans can be." And when he gives them the gift, the people cry.
Yeah.
And do you know what they all say? "Thank you, God."
Yeah.
Anava. That's humility. Thank you, and thank you, God. My prayers were answered. Now we have to understand, what does that do to our ego? Keeps it in check. God says, yes, you are individual. Acknowledge there's an I. Absolutely. I addressed you as a you. You addressed me as I. We have this relationship. Keep it within check.
Okay.
God doesn't want to squash our ego, as well he doesn't want our ego to be overinflated.
Yeah.
Recognize that. And Chachamim have different phrases,
Yeah.
remember Yom HaMitah, remember the day of your death, remember
Right.
where you came from, a lot of these things in Pirkei Avot and other places in Talmud,
Plenty, yeah.
as well as a lot of Pesukim in
Mishle.
Mishle.
And Tehillim.
Yeah, you have a lot of
course.
that because this is one of our biggest problems. This is really it's a constant struggle, and again it goes back to the Adam and Eve story that one day we're gonna
cover
we're
that.
gonna
We're gonna have to
cover that,
Yeah.
and we're gonna see that it's all connected, right? So out of nowhere, right? Pitom, Pitom, suddenly,
Yeah.
God calls Moshe, Aharon, and Miriam. All three of you, right? Come to Oel Moed. Come to the tent, right? God comes down in the so-called cloud,
Yeah.
right? And he calls Aharon, Miriam. They come, right? And he says the following: Shim'ona devarai. This is one of the rarest places God ever says Shim'ona devarai. Listen to my words. Please listen to my words, right? Any Navi among you humans, right, that I'm going to communicate with, it's always going to be in a vision. It's going to be transmitted in a type of a dream, right? Through there, you'll be able to understand my will, my word. But my servant Moshe is not so. B'chol biti ne'emanhu. When it says here, he is trustworthy in all my houses, Saadia explains in all my nation. Throughout my nation he is trusted. And that's exactly how the people felt about Moshe.
Yeah.
Right? And God told him, initially when he spoke to Moshe, they're going to trust you. When they're going to see me, when you're going to be here back on this mountain, they're going to see me speaking to you, they're going to trust you.
Yeah.
Again, not believe, trust.
Trust.
And you guys didn't trust? The Jewish people who are not family with him, your brother and sister, you don't trust him like they do? It's a criticism. I will speak to him mouth to mouth, meaning face to face, directly, with words, direct words, right? Velo bihidot, not with figurative language even, not with riddles. Utmunat Adonai yabit. In other words, he will be able to understand my word essentially exactly as I'm giving it to him, and not only that, he'll be fixated to transmit what my will is even, which is labit, is to be fixated to something, which is basically meaning it's going to be the dialogue that Moshe is going to receive through on his intellect. It's as if it's going to be stamped.
Yeah.
Okay, no doubt. And how dare you not be fearful of speaking about my servant Moshe? And then God leaves. Mm-hmm. And suddenly the cloud ascends, and Miriam has tzarat, right? Kashaleg, like white. Like her skin became white. She had some type of a skin disorder, a flaky, probably a lot of flaky white skin. And it freaked them out. Aharon goes, what the heck? He sees Miriam. And then he tells Moshe, please, sir. He says, don't put upon us this transgression that we did to you. Don't hold a grudge against us. Don't avenge. Moshe has no interest in doing this. He's beyond that. He's beyond, way beyond this petty nonsense that them two were. Right? And please, what can you do to Miriam, because her skin looks as, it's like being eaten up, as if it's a dead embryo.
It's bad.
So Moshe cries out to God, and he says the shortest tefillah that we have, Chachamim say, 5 words. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. El na refa na la.
Yeah.
Twice he says, please God, please heal her. Twice he says please. Showing again anava, his humility. You could have said no. Let her deal with it and give her some ointment. I don't know.
Whatever. Not just that. It's Aharon's task as a Kohen Gadol to deal with to deal with the people tzarat.
So what does that tell you?
Right.
What's the message? I think it's a profound message what you're saying.
Well, one, Aharon humbled himself to Moshe. That's one. And
which requires what from the person speaking ill about somebody to do?
Forgiveness, teshuvah.
Asking forgiveness. When you ask forgiveness, you humble yourself. You recognize that you are the one who had the flaw, not the person you spoke about.
Yeah.
You have the blemish. Miriam has the blemish. And if the people once we acknowledge that when we speak gossip about others and slander others, that we have the blemish, we need to fix the situation. We shouldn't expect the victim or the one who we spoke ill about for them to fix the situation.
It's not their responsibility.
It's your responsibility. You stirred the pot. You started something that was totally not necessary. What are you doing? Why don't you focus on yourself? This is something that in psychology also, they say that people who look down at others are really looking down upon themselves.
It's projection.
The projection of who they are.
Sure.
I think I gave one time a little tidbit in Hakimi's house on Shabbat.
Yeah.
When it had to do with the Parasha of Metzorah. That the whole tzarat thing hit who? It hit the skin of somebody, right? The clothes of somebody,
and the house.
and the house of somebody. Those are all superficial things. That in general, very often, we gossip on the superficiality of things, of people. We don't really know who they really are. You don't know all their
Misfortunes,
choices, all their situations,
their difficulties. You don't know what they're going
You
through.
don't know what they're going through.
Right.
You're only looking at the outside of it, and hence, Chachamim say, that's the person who does that gets the blemish also on the outside, so everybody can see. Which is really a precautionary measure that they're associating it. They get the idea from here, obviously. And
Yeah.
they make
For
the
Lashon
connection.
Hara. They make the connection between
Make the
Lashon Hara and
connections,
Tzarat, right? From
It's
this
a
episode.
precautionary because this problem ain't going away and never will go away as long as humans talk.
That's for sure. It's
We always have something to say about others. We should do our best, really. It takes training.
it's very easy because it's very easy to point the finger.
Yeah.
But I like the line: you point one finger at someone else, there's three pointing back at you.
At you, yeah.
Right? And I think that's the point. And I think with Moshe Rabbeinu, it's fascinating how he's so beyond the pettiness, but not just beyond the pettiness, he's willing also to accept the forgiveness, and then not just that, pray for the people who are talking about him this way.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is just one episode of many where he's coming to bat for people who did wrong. What do we see? Chayta Egel. Chayta Egel, he comes, the people did probably one of the worst things they could have ever done after receiving the Torah, after receiving the Sid Diberot. And he goes to bat for them.
He's always going to bat.
He's
for them.
always going to bat for
But that's a leader. And what's beautiful again is that God never shuts him down. Again, this is the relationship
That's true.
that he has with God, and it's what Moshe what the Torah is doing via Moshe, God via Moshe, in pushing his buttons,
Yeah.
right? Is teaching how we are supposed to have a relationship with God through the covenant. That yes, we are going to make mistakes. We are going to fail. Here, Moshe, Miriam and Aaron, yeah, they failed. They failed. Right? There's recourse.
Consequences.
There's consequences, yeah, as well as there's recourse. We can start over. We can move on.
Yeah.
Deal with it. Shivat Yamim, right? 7 days.
7 days she's out. Miriam is out. She
Right.
has to quarantine herself from everybody.
And then
She'll come back in.
come back.
And then we'll go back. And then we'll start the journey, restart the journey again.
This is again a beautiful mission of the Torah, that it's positive. It gives it doesn't make things hopeless.
There's always a remedy.
There's a remedy. It might not be the best remedy. It might not be the remedy that you're really looking for and want. It doesn't. No. But there is something. There is something. I saw another clip. This was horrible. I was crying.
Yeah.
A father talking to a son, like a 10-year-old boy who has like severe cancer, right? through treatment, and you see the boy, and the father asked the boy, "Why do you think you have this?" You know what the boy says? He goes, "God wants me to have cancer." So the father says, "Why do you think God wants you to have cancer?" He goes, "For me to demonstrate how precious our health is, for others to learn through me."
This is a 10-year-old? Oof. Oh my God. Wow.
Look at that mindset.
That's
Whether he really understands
Right.
profoundly, it doesn't matter. But his own,
he understood something.
his own child perception, he realizes that it's not as bad as things might seem. You got to look at it as, I'm just part of the huge puzzle that it's not about me. It's also what it's saying is that what can we learn from the suffering of others? If there is no evil, there's no good.
Yeah. Right. Rabbi Sachs, I love what Rabbi Sachs says on this topic. There's a video before he passed away. It was going around and he was talking, someone asking the question, why do bad things happen to good people? The classic question, right? And he's like, I don't know. And frankly, we'll never know. But that's the point. Because if we know the answer to this question, we'll just stop. We'll stop doing good.
So what do? We interpret situations.
We're interpreting.
We're interpreting. So I can choose using the interpretation mechanism that God is teaching me to say, what good can I see out of it?
Yeah.
Even death is good for humanity.
It's necessary.
Oh, and how? Forget on the natural level, it humbles us.
Yeah, there's that classic.
It does.
There's that classic life reflection people like to do is, imagine you're writing your own obituary.
Right.
Or
how do you want to be remembered?
How do you want to be remembered?
Right.
What do you want written on your tombstone? What are the things, right? It comes back to that. It's like, maybe I do need to think about reorient
So
myself.
that's the thing. So those things push us to see how useful one is and how meaningful one is, not only to oneself, but to others.
Yeah.
The older we get, the older we become, the more we realize my value is determined what I can do to others. What can I contribute to God's world, small, big, doesn't matter what it is, will give me much more value of who I am. And that will end it.
Yeah. Amen.
Amen.